You know, no one really warns you about the quiet. They warn you about the wrinkles, the joint pain, the paperwork of aging, but not the quiet. Not the kind that settles into your house like dust, soft and constant. It doesn't barge in all at once, either. It shows up slowly. One day the phone rings less. Then one morning you realize the calendar looks empty. The door stays closed longer. And that buzz, that hum of a full life, starts to fade. It's not always sad. Sometimes it feels like relief. After all, you've done your share. You raised your kids, worked your job, took care of parents, pets, neighbors, maybe even a lawn or two. There's something sacred about finally having time that's yours. But there's a fine line between solitude and loneliness, and it's sneaky. You think you're enjoying a peaceful day until you realize you haven't spoken to anyone in 2, or 3, or maybe more. I remember a man I met at a senior center years ago, George. He was sharp as a tack, always had a story in his back pocket. But the first time I met him, he looked like he was carrying invisible bricks on his shoulders. I asked him if he had family nearby, and he shrugged. "I've got 3 kids and 2 ex-wives within 30 miles, he said, "but I haven't had lunch with any of them in 5 years. Then he smiled in that polite, cover-it-up kind of way. "I guess people are just busy." People are busy. That's the answer we tell ourselves when the silence grows louder. But it's not just about other people being busy. Sometimes, especially after 70, we pull away a little too. Maybe we think we're a burden. Maybe we've been hurt. Maybe we've just grown used to being alone. But here's the thing. Connection is as vital now as it was when we were younger. In fact, it might be even more important. Not just for the warm, fuzzy feeling, though that's nice too, but for our actual health. Studies show that loneliness can hit your body like high blood pressure or smoking. That sense of being cut off, it weighs down the immune system, weakens. The heart messes with memory. Our bodies are social creatures no matter what age we are. Still, I get it. Reaching out now, at this stage, can feel awkward. Like you're the only one at the dance who doesn't know the steps. But you're not. Trust me. There are more people feeling lonely than you can imagine. Probably even on your own block. One thing that helps? Looking at connection a little differently. We often think it has to be deep, intimate friendship or nothing. But the truth is, even small interactions matter. A smile at the grocery store clerk, a quick chat with the guy walking his dog every morning. These tiny threads, when you collect enough of them, they start to feel like a net. And that net can hold you on the hard days. There's a woman I visit occasionally. Mary, 74, retired nurse, widowed 10 years. She told me once that her life changed the day she started saying good morning to the mailman. That's it. Just a wave, a few words. Over time, that became a shared joke, then a birthday card, then a neighbor who helped carry her groceries. It didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't dramatic, but it was real. And that's what we forget sometimes, that it doesn't take a grand gesture. You don't need to host a dinner party or join a club with matching t-shirts. You just need to stay open, to moments, to people, to yourself. And yes, I know the world feels different now. Maybe you used to have friends you met every week, but life scattered them. Maybe you've tried reconnecting, only to get silence in return. Or maybe technology has taken over and you feel like you need a manual just to say hello. That frustration is real, but it's not the whole picture. You're not starting from scratch. You have stories. You have humor. You have experience. And, most of all, you have worth. That never went anywhere. Even if the phone is quiet and the front door hasn't opened all week, it doesn't mean you've stopped being needed or loved. It just means it's time to plant a few new seeds. It's funny, because we spend our younger years worrying about being popular, being seen. Then, somewhere along the way, we start to feel invisible. But that feeling? It's not the end of the story. It's a chapter, and chapters turn. So maybe today, all that means is looking up from your plate at breakfast and noticing the birds outside. Or putting on that sweater you usually save for special occasions, just because it makes you feel good. Or even just saying to yourself, I'm still here and I matter. Because you do. It's amazing what can happen when you start with something small. Just one step. One hello that feels a little silly at first. One extra second of eye contact at the checkout line. One quick text to someone you haven't spoken to in years, even if you're not sure they'll respond. You'd be surprised how often they do. A friend of mine, Nora, she's and lives in a quiet little suburb with more squirrels than people. She told me she got tired of waiting for someone to knock on her door, so she decided to take her coffee outside each morning. Just sat on the porch with her mug and her mystery novel, rain or shine. For a while, nothing happened. Then, one day, the man across the street gave a little wave. A week later, they started chatting about the weather. Now, every Saturday, they walk to the farmer's market together. She said it's the highlight of her week. And it all started with sitting outside, holding a cup of coffee. There's something about that kind of bravery, the quiet kind, that I really admire. It's not about being loud or outgoing. It's not about reinventing yourself or filling every day with people. It's about being willing to be seen again, to say, I'm still here, not just to yourself, but to the world around you. And I'll tell you this, people are craving connection just as much as you are. You're not the only one feeling lonely, but loneliness is funny. It lies. It tells you everyone else has full calendars and busy families and dinner invitations, stacked on their fridge. But most of us are just trying to find someone to talk to who actually listens. That's why I always say, don't underestimate the power of casual friendships. You don't have to find your new best friend right away. You don't need a soul connection. You just need a friendly face. Someone who knows your name. Someone who notices when you don't show up to bingo or miss your morning walk. Sometimes, those surface-level connections turn into something deeper. Sometimes they stay simple. Both are valuable. Now, if you're feeling a little rusty in the conversation department, don't worry. It's like riding a bike. You wobble a bit, then remember how to pedal. Start with questions. Ask someone about their dog, their garden, their favorite movie. People love to talk about themselves, and it's not a trick. It's a bridge. You're showing interest, which is something we all crave, no matter how old we get. And if the thought of meeting someone new feels overwhelming, try reconnecting with someone from the past. Old friends, neighbors, co-workers. You don't need a long speech, just a simple note. I was thinking about you today. Hope you're doing well. That's it. You'd be amazed how often that tiny message cracks open a whole conversation. My cousin Sam, he's now, was convinced nobody from his past even remembered him. But one day, his granddaughter helped him send a message to a former army buddy he hadn't spoken to in over 50 years. A week later, they were on a Zoom call talking like no time had passed. Turns out that buddy had been thinking about Sam too, but hadn't known how to reach out. All it took was that first nudge. And here's another secret. Saying yes opens more doors than you think. I know, it's easy to say no. No to events. No to invitations. No to things that take energy you're not sure you have. But even saying yes once a week can change the shape of your days. You don't have to love it every time. You just have to give it a shot. There's a community center near my place that hosts a Wednesday night game night. Cards, dominoes, board games. I walked by it for years before finally stepping inside. I felt like the new kid at school. But before I even found a chair, a woman offered me a spot at her table and said, "We don't take it too seriously, but we do laugh a lot." And we did. I came home with sore cheeks and a new friend named Carol who tells terrible jokes and bakes even worse cookies. But I adore her. You don't have to be a social butterfly. You just have to be present. You just have to be curious. So go ahead, wave to your neighbor, compliment the cashier's earrings, strike up a conversation with the person sitting alone at the library. These aren't just polite gestures. They're invitations. Little moments that say, I see you. And sometimes that's all it takes. Because here's the beautiful part. Connection doesn't care about age. It doesn't care if your knees creak or if your phone still has buttons instead of a screen. Connection is about being human. And that, my friend, you've never stopped being. I've always believed that one of the hardest things about growing older isn't just the physical changes. It's the quiet shift in how we see ourselves. When you've lived a life full of responsibility and purpose, of making things happen and being needed by others, it's jarring to suddenly feel uninvited, like the world is moving on without asking if you're coming along. And slowly, sometimes without even realizing it, we start to accept a smaller place in it. But maybe it's time to challenge that idea. Because the truth is, connection doesn't retire. Purpose doesn't age out. And belonging isn't a gift someone hands you. It's something you create, even now. Especially now. I remember talking with a woman named Lorraine at a bookstore cafe. She was 79, had just moved into a new apartment complex and said she felt like a ghost. Everyone polite. No. It doesn't care if your knees creak or if your phone still has buttons instead of a screen. Connection is about being human. And that, my friend, you've never stopped being. I've always believed that one of the hardest things about growing older isn't just the physical changes. It's the quiet shift in how we see ourselves. When you've lived a life full of responsibility and purpose, of making things happen and being needed by others, it's jarring to suddenly feel uninvited, like the world is moving on without asking if you're coming along. And slowly, sometimes without even realizing it, we start to accept a smaller place in it. But maybe it's time to challenge that idea. Because the truth is, connection doesn't retire. Purpose doesn't age out. And belonging isn't a gift someone hands you. It's something you create, even now. Especially now. I remember talking with a woman named Lorraine at a bookstore cafe. She was 79, had just moved into a new apartment complex, and said she felt like a ghost. Everyone polite, no one really engaging. I smile, she told me, but people smile back and keep walking. I feel like I missed the class where everyone learned how to make friends after 70. I laughed and said, "Oh, that class was canceled. We're all winging it." What struck me, though, was what she did next. Instead of retreating, Lorraine baked muffins. Blueberry, knocked on 3 doors, handed them out with a note that said, "New neighbor, no expectations, just hope you like muffins." 2 people never replied. 1 woman invited her in for coffee. They're still friends, and she still bakes muffins. The point is, sometimes, connection means doing something that feels a little uncomfortable. It means taking the lead, even when you wish someone else would, especially if you've been raised to be modest, to wait for invitations, to not bother anyone. But those rules, they don't serve us now. They were written for a different time, and honestly, they're worth rewriting. You don't need permission to belong. There's a myth out there, quiet but persistent, that by a certain age everyone's social life is already established, that it's too late to break in, that everyone has their little group, their routine, their people. And maybe some do, but many don't. And even those who seem surrounded by others, they're often wishing someone would reach out to them. This is the part of the story where I want to nudge you gently, ask you to let go of that old idea that making friends is only for the young, that it has to start with shared history or a big moment. Most friendships, at any age, begin in awkward silences, in stuttered small talk, in mundane settings. In fact, one of the deepest friendships I know started over spilled coffee in a waiting room. A mess, a laugh, a conversation. That's all it took. And yes, sometimes people will be dismissive or distracted. Sometimes you'll try and it won't go anywhere. But connection isn't about getting it perfect. It's about trying again. About trusting that your voice is still welcome, that your presence still matters. Because it does. A friend of mine, Arthur, 81, walks with a cane and wears a hat that says "Retired, not expired," started going to a poetry group at the local library. He didn't even like poetry. He just wanted to be around people who talked about something other than their cholesterol. First session, he didn't say a word. Second one, he read a haiku he scribbled on the back of a grocery list. By the third session, he was hosting potlucks at his house, all because he showed up. And showing up doesn't always mean physically walking into a room. For some folks, especially if mobility is an issue, connection might come through phone, calls, letters, or even learning a little technology. I know tech can feel intimidating. Zoom, text threads, all those beeping notifications. But there's real possibility there too. My neighbor learned to use video calls so she could read bedtime stories to her great-grandkids across the country. Now she jokes that she gets more FaceTime than a celebrity. If you're not sure where to begin, start by noticing who's already nearby. Who do you see regularly? Who do you miss? Who seems like they might be just as open to connection as you are? Sometimes we overlook the people right in front of us because we're waiting for a grand entrance. But connection often comes quietly. No spotlight, just a simple, "Hi, how's your day going?" And don't forget to reconnect with yourself too. The more at ease you are in your own company, the easier it is to invite someone else in. I'm not saying you have to be happy all the time. I'm saying treat yourself with the same kindness and curiosity you'd offer to a new friend. You've lived a whole life. Chances are you've got wisdom, humor, and a few good stories tucked away. Share them. Someone's waiting to hear them. We live in a world that moves fast, but not everything good has to be fast. Some friendships take time. Some conversations take courage. But you're not too old, too late, or too forgotten to start. And that feeling, that deep, human desire to belong, that's not weakness. That's your heart reminding you that you're still here, still alive, still open to love in all its forms. So here's the question. If you let go of those old rules, those old fears, what kind of connection might be waiting just around the corner? The other day, I was walking through the park and saw an older gentleman sitting alone on a bench, feeding bits of his sandwich to the birds. He looked peaceful, content even. But there was something about his stillness that caught my attention. I sat down on the opposite bench, not to intrude, just to enjoy the quiet myself. After a while, he looked over, smiled, and said, "I used to come here with my wife every Thursday. She made the best tuna sandwiches." We talked for 20 minutes. Nothing earth-shattering, just birds, sandwiches, and memories. But when we stood up to leave, he said, "Thanks. I haven't said that out loud in a long time." And it hit me. Sometimes connection isn't about fixing loneliness. Sometimes it's simply about being witnessed, about having someone to share the air with. That's where the real magic lies. Not in huge social circles or busy calendars, but in those small shared moments where we remember we're not invisible. Now, maybe you're thinking, well, I don't have anyone to talk to like that. But you do. You might not know them yet, but they're there. They're in the checkout line behind you, sitting at the next table in the cafe, living 2 doors down, waiting in a doctor's office, and like you, they're hoping someone will say something first. You don't need to have the perfect thing to say. You just need to show up with a little warmth, a little courage, maybe a little humor if you've got it in you. And if the conversation doesn't bloom, that's okay. You tried. That matters. I once met a woman named Teresa who, at 76, decided to start a Lonely Hearts Club in her apartment complex. Not the romantic kind, but the kind where people could just come and be together, no questions asked. She printed flyers, put them in mailboxes, and waited. The first week, no one came. The second week, one man showed up, stayed 5 minutes, and left. But by the 5th week, they had 8 regulars, and by month 3 they were having potlucks, sharing stories, even doing karaoke. Bad karaoke, mind you, but joyful all the same. That's what happens when someone lights a little beacon in the dark. Others find their way to it. And if you're not sure you can light a whole beacon, maybe just a candle, a small gesture, a birthday card, an invitation to walk, a shared laugh. These aren't trivial. They're sacred. They're how we remember that we matter. Now, I'm not pretending it's always easy. Some days the loneliness feels heavier than others. Some days, no matter what you try, the world just feels far away. That's real, and it's okay to sit with that. But don't live there. Don't. Unpack and stay. Instead, be gentle with yourself. Take care of your space. Put on music that makes you feel something. Cook something simple and delicious just for you. Wear clothes that make you feel like yourself. When you tend to your own spirit, you're more likely to notice when someone else is doing the same. And that's often how connection begins. And hey, don't be afraid to ask for help. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Join a group, take a class, call your local library or community center. There are people and programs out there meant just for you. They may not be perfect. You may have to try a few to find your fit. But the act of trying? That's brave. That's powerful. Here's the thing. Feeling lonely doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. It means your heart still wants company. And that's a beautiful thing, because it means you're still open, still hopeful, still capable of building something new. You are not too late. You are not too old.